Tea or Coffee, a film podcast with Thomas and Joe, with theme music by bensound.org. See description for more information. What hello and welcome back to the Tea or Coffee podcast where we talk movies, films and related media. My name is Thomas and today I'll be doing this podcast alone. Normally I'll be joined by Joe, but he's not available, so I'm hijacking this podcast to talk about Doctor Who, particularly last year's Christmas special, The Return of Doctor Mysterio. To give an overview, this is a plot synopsis. This Christmas sees the Doctor join forces with a masked superhero for an epic New York adventure. With brain-swapping aliens poised to attack, the Doctor and Noddle team up with an investigative reporter and a mysterious figure known only as the Ghost. Can the Doctor save Manhattan, and what will be revealed when we see behind the mask? It stars Peter Capaldi, Matt Lucas, Justin Chatwin, Charity Wakefield, Tomiwa Edun, and Alexander Jovanik and Logan Huffman. I've probably butchered those names, and apologies to them. Right. To give my overview thoughts, I thought this episode was very traditional superhero episodes, very much like the original Superman film. Is obviously Stephen Moffat has cited this original film as being a huge inspiration for him, and that's really much comes across in it. It has a reporter whose initials are LL. It has a superhero who can fly, who can see X-ray, has X-ray vision, who has super strength. It has sort of a love triangle between this reporter, the superhero, and his alter ego, and it deals with an evil, corrupt business, which I suppose is very much sort of the Lex Luthor of the story. I think the leader of that is Mr. Sim. It also has sort of a building with a planet on the roof where a lot of the action takes place, and then there's also a romantic dinner on a garden on a tall building block. So it's very traditional sort of Superman, a lot of Superman's ideas, sort of about sort of keeping secret identity to protect people closest to them, sort of having a very boring daytime job. Grant he's a nanny, and he's also working for the love interest Lucy. So it's very sort of by the books story, and as a result it does come across as slightly sort of unoriginal, I suppose. It doesn't seem to quite know who its target audience is. If its target audience is people who like Superman films, then they're just going to be feeling like, well, this is very sort of traditional, I know what this is. And if it's trying to target those who don't sort of know and love Superman films, then they're not particularly going to understand all the references. So it's very much sort of an up and down sort of scenario as to who exactly is it trying to appeal to. That being said, I don't think it's bad. Very much, this is a story which has been told before, I suppose, as I was saying, and as a result, it's a worn story, but it's a worn good story. So I don't think this is a failure of an episode. I just think it just isn't anything particularly special. It's just very by the books. One of the things that also struck me was what exactly Peter Capaldi's Doctor is doing in this episode. Other than giving the superhero his powers, he very much feels sort of added on and sort of not sort of really relevant to the story. He comes in and out, and often it's focusing on Grant and Lucy, and the Doctor feels a little sort of playing third fiddle in a story which should be, I suppose, about him. Other than sort of giving Grant the red gemstone which gives him superpowers, he doesn't seem to have much relevance to the story. And yes, he sort of crashes a ship towards the Earth, but it's Grant who ultimately saves the day, and the Doctor just is like, yeah, the Doctor feels very much as a supporting role. Various characteristics of the Doctor are quite odd. He's very light-hearted and whimsical in this episode. He's very sort of quipping and a bit unlike what we started off with 12th Doctor, but more like what we got in Series 9. I'm not quite sure whether I like this new version, because in many ways it feels much more like Matt Smith's version, and it feels like the writing is very much samey. And it doesn't feel like Moffat's got a very distinct version of 12th Doctor, which he did have in Series 8, albeit it felt very Sherlocky in that scenario. So again, Capaldi seems to be does a very good job with being given very little sort of real substance to do. It feels Noddle, who was a supporting character, I think he does a fine job with what he's given. Again, I'm not particularly enthralled with a role. It's a very sort of comic relief role, but he has that one nice moment towards the end, and he does all right with it. Speaking of supporting characters, the actor who played the superhero did a nice job of having sort of a Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, and also the Chris Reeve Superman, and it all sort of came together quite nicely. It's a very sort of good generic superhero, I suppose. He doesn't feel very distinct. He feels again very much like an archetype of someone else, but at the same time, that's all right, I suppose, in the sense that that's what he's trying to be. He is meant to be very generic because inspired by a young boy who's just been reading comic books. The way he gets his powers felt a little contrived. If also in Stephen Moffat's era of Doctor Who, we've got very much a suspended belief where ridiculous things happen, where if you swallow a small red gemstone, you'll get all these superpowers, which is a little weird, and especially as the Doctor sort of mocks sort of the Spider-Man superhero origin, then this feels just as ridiculous, I suppose. So it's interesting in that aspect. It's not sort of in one sense it tries a parody of superhero genre, but at the same time just plays completely along with the rules, so therefore isn't really a parody. So other supporting characters, the villains felt very sort of generic and evil and snarling. They didn't feel like they had much to them. The reporter was very much sort of a very basic Lois Lane with sort of the added element of the child, but there wasn't really much else as to it. The effects were good. The flying was pretty good. The brain effects are pretty horrible, especially where sort of they rip open their heads and sort of there's an alien brain in there, and with weird eyes and everything. But that's something we saw a year ago in the Husband's a River Song story, and that very much sort of carried on here. This is very much a sequel to that story with Nardole and with the same villain showing up again. One thing I did feel slightly odd was the fact that Doctor been missing for 24 years, because that's I understand why they said that, because he's been with Riversong, but at the same time it's sort of, well, hang on a moment, he's a time traveller, and we already saw him in the 90s seeing young Grant, so that didn't really sort of add up. Logan Hoffman, who plays young Grant, does a pretty good job. It's very hard as a child actor to be convincing, and he would sort of very much sort of convinced that I was a person, not just a kid saying words someone had told him to say. Also, in regards to Nadal, it seemed a little weird to see that sort of he just been reconnected to his body without any explanation. But then again, most people wouldn't have been really sort of familiar with the character or remember him from last year's Christmas special, so I suppose Moffat would have relied on sort of not that many people knowing or caring. I suppose very much like Strax from the Paternoster gang. It was also nice to see sort of Doctor seeking to undo his sort of the time paradoxes created in sort of Manhattan by his previous visits and things like the Angels Take Manhattan and the Dalek episode, I assume. Obviously, this means that he couldn't go back in time to save Amy and Rory because of them, so it's nice to see that now he's sort of at least trying to sort of smooth out everything and be a hero again. One other thing I found a little odd about the Christmas special was the Doctor's compulsive lying disorder. It's obviously a long time since John Pertwee in the 70s sang a song about the Doctor wielding the sword of truth, and this is very much sort of, the one is very much apart from that, and particularly in Moffat's era, it's rule number one, the Doctor lies. I'm pretty disappointed in that. I think it's better to have a hero who at least tries to tell the truth when he can, rather than just lying at everything. But that's the direction Moffat is still to take, so that's what we had to live with. Obviously, rating wise, this least watched Christmas specials, though more than last year, which was I suppose an improvement, but it is very much viewing figures have dropped during a comparative era. That's we think we have to think about going forward. The critical review, I suppose, has been mixed to positive. Most of the people are just saying, well, it's sort of it's a bit of a romp, it's a bit of a panto, it's a bit of sort of a Doctor in New York, cosmic baddies and superheroes. So it's been regarded as very sort of a lightweight sort of film. I know that Tom Spilsbury, I believe his name is, of Doctor Who magazine, really enjoyed it, and also the other guy who reviewed in Doctor Who magazine, I can't remember what his name is, he was also very positive. So overall, this has quite a positive response from critics. So I have seen sort of fan reviews being more mixed on, has been more mixed. So on a whole, this felt very sort of basic. It felt very sort of simplistic. I don't think it was really bad, but it wasn't sort of anything special either. It was very sort of straightforward. So I suppose to use our podcast system to explain to new listeners, this is basically where we equate a film or a TV show or anything like that to a particular type of drink, and hence the title of the podcast, tea or coffee. I think in this case it feels like sort of a concentrated apple juice that you might have for breakfast, where it's not sort of the nicest drink in the world, but it's got quite a lot of sugar in it, and in the morning it's fine, it gets you through. So that's sort of what this feels like. It got us through the year of 2016 without any other episodes of Doctor Who. It was quite sort of energetic and sort of paying tribute to the superhero genre, but it didn't really have much else to it. So I suppose that's very much what I would equate this episode to. Going forward into series 10, I'm looking forward to saying farewell to Stephen Moffat. I think he's been a very good writer for most parts, but I do feel that particularly in the Capaldi's era, he's gone downhill, and it just doesn't feel. He feels like he's lost his spark. He's lost his sort of element of really being able to surprise, and he's done sort of very sort of whimsical sort of stuff, which I'd hoped he would have moved away from, particularly with Capaldi's more stern Doctor. Looking ahead in season 10, we obviously saw a trailer at the end of the special. I did like sort of a slightly different attitude that the new companion Bill has, and some of the look of some of the episodes look really fascinating. Sort of the settings and sort of the spacesuits, or actually I think they're underwater suits, and some of the monster design. Not particularly looking forward to the emoji monsters, whatever they are, but other than that, there seem to be some really good quality designs, some quite nice sort of ideas for episodes, hopefully. Some great writers returning, Jamie Matheson and Toby Whithouse particularly, with Sarah Dolan and I think a new writer, Mike Bartlett. I don't think he's written before. No, he hasn't. I believe the episode he's writing is called The Haunted Hub, so that'll be interesting. Obviously, it's still filming now, but we're looking forward to seeing David Suchet appearing as the landlord in that episode, The Haunted Hub. So there's lots to look forward to this season. I don't think Joe will be up for talking about it, but I might do another short episode like this one, at some point, just to do a little overview. Pearl Mackie is obviously starting a series as Bill Potts' new companion, and obviously Matt Lucasbeck as Nardole. I'm not entirely up for that, but he was fine. I quite like the idea of Doctor having a valet, even if he is sort of slightly sort of overly comic relief. It'll be fine, I suppose. And looking forward to obviously Chris Chibnall taking over next year, and it'll be interesting to see sort of what different tone and what different sort of outlook he brings to the series. So that should just about do it. I hope you enjoyed this much shorter episode. Joe will hopefully back next week. This is probably a day late than it should be, but thanks for listening, and do remember to give a like if you're on YouTube, subscribe, and we've had trouble getting this on iTunes, but hopefully we'll get on there soon, and please do subscribe from there. Bye.